Hello H280 staff, my name is Sebastian Schaub and this is my IA application video. So in this video I'm going to be talking a little bit about linked lists. I'm going to be going over the basics of what a linked list actually is. I'm going to go over a bit of a visualization to help students get a better mental picture of how a linked list actually works. And then I'm going to show how we can use this kind of visualization to our advantage when we're implementing some of the functions for Project 4, such as the popback function. So first of all, what is a linked list? Now, a linked list is just another kind of data structure. So we've seen other data structures in 280 so far, mainly vectors. So you definitely had to use a vector in Project 1. You probably used vectors in Project 3. But in Project 4, we're going to be implementing a new kind of data structure called a linked list. More specifically, a double-ended, doubly linked list. And that sounds really complicated. That sounds like a bit of a mouthful. But I'm going to be explaining exactly what that means in a sec here. So a linked list contains elements which we define as nodes. So we define nodes ourselves, and we define it as a struct in our list class. So each node contains exactly 3 pieces of data in our double-ended, doubly linked list. So first of all, we have the actual datum itself. Now this could be any kind of data. So we could have integers, we could have a list of strings, we could even have a list of objects of a class. But for simplicity, we're just going to use integers. And the other 2 elements are 2 pointers. So we keep a pointer to the next element in the list and a pointer to the previous element in the list. And this is why it's called a doubly linked list, because it's linked in both directions. So that is a node. But how do we actually keep track of the elements in this specific instance of a list? And the way we do that is with 2 other pointers. We keep a pointer to the first element in the linked list and a pointer to the last element in the linked list. And that's why it's called a double-ended linked list, because we keep track of the beginning and the end of the list, and then it's doubly linked in that each node contains a pointer to the next element and a pointer to the previous element. So that's the basics of what a linked list actually is. And linked lists are really nice because they're really easy to visualize. So when you're implementing the functions in Project 4, drawing pictures is going to be really helpful for you because you're going to be able to see exactly what the pointers are doing. So for example, in the popback function, you erase the last element in the list, and then you can see what you're going to have to do to the pointers to keep the list intact. So I've drawn a very simple example of a linked list here of size 3. And I've drawn it in a way so that you can very easily see each element of a node. And so starting with this example, we have a pointer to the first element in the list. So this points to the 1 here, and then a pointer to the last element in the list, that points to the 3 over there. And then each node, going from left to right, we have our our previous pointer. And note that the first element in the list has no previous element. So we set it to a null pointer by default. And then every other element has a valid pointer. So the 2 points to the 1, the 3 points to the 2. And then our middle box here is actual datum. So in this case, we have integers. So we have a 1, a 2, and a 3, pretty self-explanatory. And then our third box on the right here is our next pointer. So the 1 points to the 2, 2 points to the 3, and then our 3 has no next element because it is the last element in the list. So we set it to a null pointer by default, similar to how the first element's previous pointer is a null pointer by default. So this is going to be really helpful to draw these kinds of pictures when you're implementing your functions in Project 4. So I'm going to be going over the basics of the popback function. I'm not going to implement it for you because that's for you to do in Project 4, but I'm going to be showing how you can use this kind of picture to your advantage to help you implement these functions really easily. So, got my eraser here. In the popback function, a popback is basically just deleting the last element of a list. So in this case, we have a 3 as our last element, and it's going to be really easy to visualize if we just draw this kind of picture. So we delete our last element, and that includes deleting its next pointer and its previous pointer and the datum itself. So this is now gone, and notice how our last pointer now points to nothing, and the 2's next pointer also now points to nothing. So these 2 pointers we're going to have to repoint to keep this list intact. So this tells us right away that we're going to have to keep track of this last element somehow because we need its previous pointer to know where this 2 is in the list. So we're going to keep track of this pointer with some kind of temp variable. So in our popback function, we're going to have a node pointer, and we'll call it temp. Or James Jewett would like to call it the victim pointer. And this is going to be pointing to our last, because we're going to have to keep track of it and delete it later on, but we still need its access to its previous pointer to keep track of where this 2 is, because this 2 is going to become our new last element. So we're going to have to repoint this last pointer to the 2. So you can kind of go through the rest, go over edge cases yourself. But yeah, drawing these pictures is going to be really helpful for you when you're implementing your functions in Project 4. And I know I drew so many pictures in my notebook when I was doing Project 4 when I took this class. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on this video. I hope it was helpful. I know it is a lot to take in, but I assure you that, if you use diagrams to help you implement your functions, it's going to make things so much easier. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped, and have a good day.